Charlotte, this is not an exam, so you don't have to repeat everything.
Yeah.
So just tell me one thing you
I was
heard.
going to say that Dr. Ali has stolen my answer, but I'll find another one. Yeah, I liked, coming from the finance industry, I particularly like the guidance on structuring. For us to be able to work with unit structure. But I like the bit on partnerships. And we are looking at more and more ways in which we bring our strengths and other strengths from other players in the market to bring better value to SMEs.
Wonderful. Andre, what did you?
Oh, I like the fact that you can apply for some relief, with GRA. We actually took advantage of it this year. I took advantage. For the first time, I had some relief, which wasn't bad at all. But I didn't know that if you had a certain number of graduates, you can actually have additional relief. So thank you very much, Doc, because we have a conveyor belt of national service persons, and we always retain them. So I think that was an amazing insight.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. Amma, what about you?
So for me, from Ali, the tax reliefs was really an eye-opener because I haven't ever heard of anybody in the small, medium space taking advantage of tax reliefs, and having aged parents, being able to claim them. So I think those are things that an eye-opener that I would love to look into. And then from Charlotte, the strength of EcoBank's SME department and the level of support. So I need to go and challenge my people at Access to make sure that we are either matching or beating them. And then from Andrew, branding yourself, which he reiterated and which I've always found to be a very important and strong, thing to do. And then leveraging the non-traditional spaces, where you should be able to leverage bloggers and the PRs and things, to support your small business.
Wow, put your hands together for the panel one more time. So, as I said, there's a lot of questions, and Lordina from the Vodafone team has been working with the digital guys to try and aggregate them, but it's still very difficult. So, Lordina, where are you? Give me a wave. Wonderful. So, I will sort of ask a few questions just to open the floor. Lordina will try and bring some questions in as well. I think a lot of people were asking about withholding tax. All right. So, for example, there was a question that Abdul asked. He says, my question is, what happens when the withholding tax is charged or deducted but hasn't been reported to the GRA? I sense people want to know more about the concept of withholding tax and how it applies, because in your example, you also said, for example, if I have somebody who is a cleaner, I have to pay his SNIT, I have to pay all kinds of things. But if I bring in another SME to do the cleaning for me, I just have to pay, and then they do withholding tax. So does withholding tax end my tax liability, or I have to do something else so that the withholding tax then finally gets consummated? Right, so I hope that question is broad enough on the withholding tax side. So Ali, please deal with the withholding tax for me.
Thank you very much. If the withholding tax is deducted from you but not remitted to the GRA, the law is clear. You have paid your tax. In fact, it is the revenue that has made the person an agent to collect on their behalf. So once it's been taken from your payment and you receive the net, then it is between GRA and the withholding agent.
Wow.
It cannot be surcharged on you again because it's an advance payment of your tax liability.
Amazing.
At the end of the day, when they assess you to tax, they are going to show that you've paid this proportion upfront. If there is a difference, you top up. In case you have an overpayment, you can even apply for a refund.
Wow.
And you will get the refund. Either it is credited to your future liability, or if you don't have any future liability, you can even ask for the cash, which will help you to finance your business.
Follow-up question. So maybe somebody here is a one-man business. He provides a service. Maybe he goes to sing and they pay him. He gives an invoice and they take withholding tax. So he has paid income tax on the service. Yes. Even if he doesn't go to GRA. Once he has the withholding tax certificate, he has paid the tax.
He has paid the tax.
I hope I'm helping somebody with the withholding tax question.
And today, because they are automated, once you make the payment online, If you key in your taxpayer identification number, you will find a list of all credits. So if somebody has withheld and not paid, you can see from your portal sitting in your office. Just key in and click to see taxes you've paid. You realize the person has not remitted. But that is not against you, because it's the GRA that has to sort that out with their agent.
Great. I have a question for you. When I went to business school, they told me to hire for attitude and train for skill. That's generally what my organizational development person said. But when you talked about the key personnel, and you gave an example of having one person who's your finance guy, he deals with GRA, he deals with HR, he deals with accounting. I was like, Charlie, the person can have a good attitude, but I said, help me to elaborate on that a bit.
Okay.
To get the right person with the right technical skill for my SME.
Okay. So when I was recruiting for that particular position, I made sure that I was recruiting somebody that had the skill, the technical skill to be able to fill that finance role, but also had a broad knowledge in other areas, right? So sometimes engaging in conversation during the interview process, you go beyond the technical and you ask them general questions. And those general questions sometimes will pull out a lot, So when you're approaching the interview process for, hiring, it's important to sit down and prepare and make sure that you understand the role that you need to fill, and then be able to outline the qualities that you need in the person. So attitude is important, yes, in the sense that they need to be, willing to work effectively and efficiently. But you need the technical skill because it's a technical role that needs to be filled. But that attitude is the one that will ensure that this person is able to broadly apply themselves in other areas of the business. Typically, if somebody is versatile enough, you can train them to fill additional roles in the organization. So they may themselves not even know that they are capable of filling that role. But once you identify that this is a person who is versatile and willing to think outside the box and work outside the box, you can train them to fill this role.
The other question was in the board. I like the way you gave the 3 categories. So somebody with financial, somebody with legal, and then somebody who has the network. I notice a lot of SMEs, when they start, they either use just their friends or their family members to be on the board. At what point do you have to get serious and move to this? Because, initially, my brother, my sister, my wife, that kind of thing.
No, right from the get-go. You have to be serious, and that's why it's important to take the time to sit down and plan what the business is going to look like. So if you take, the outline, for example, of the presentation, you know that these are the key personnel that I need. I need a governance role, and therefore I want a board of just 2 people. So those 2 people, you can have a lawyer who is also very networked, and you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But it's important to take it outside the family. A lot of the time, when you have a board that doesn't have the skill or the network, you're really wasting your time, because you're going to sit there and chat and not get any value out of that board.
Wow. Thank you. Put your hands together for her. And by the way, these are the questions. They are answering my questions first, right? Because I'm the moderator. So, Andre, when you were talking about the branding thing, I noticed that for a small business, there's always a challenge of developing the person versus the company. Because when I start as an MC, it's Benadable they want. So maybe I may have Benadable Incorporated, but I have to use my face to get a lot of the business. Can you elaborate a bit about how you transition into building your brand as a business and reducing the emphasis on the person? Because initially everybody wants you, so you are the one writing the articles, you are the one doing the blogs. But at what point do you say, look, or can you say, can a business still be strong with the face of the CEO still being the one driving the brand?
Of course, you can do both. I mean, I think the personal branding and branding a product can be, they can coexist, right? So there are brands that, if I'm to mention, you wouldn't know the person is behind them. right? A brand like Nalem. Gregory Kanko has been able to separate his brand from his person. Very amazing brand. And there are brands at the moment you mentioned the brand name, you can see the person behind it. They both would have their own success in different ways, but it is how you go about it. For those who don't want to get their personality involved in the building of that particular product, it's just because at that point the brand was stronger, so they didn't have to wrap their own personality around that. So it can work that way. But there are brands that the personality would have to lead before you get to a point where you think that, I can segregate my own person and my own personal brand, from this brand or this product that I'm developing. So it works both ways. It depends on your own strategy. I talked about having a very strong strategy. What is the vision you have for this brand? Where are you taking this brand? How do you want people to see this brand, and what do you want consumers to react when they hear your brand or when they see your brand or when they experience your brand? Once you have that strategy, you can use either of them. Either can work, but you need to be very clinical on when you want to stop one, especially building your own brand with your personality. Because something happens to your personality, it affects the brand.
When you did the brand ecosystem slide, where you put the growth curve against your communication needs, it was really an eye-opener for me. My question, though, is it possible to have agency for an SME? Can I come to because a lot of the agencies are big clients. Are there sort of SME-focused agencies that can help us? Right? Because we don't all have the skill of building brands.
Yes.
And you guys are dealing with big companies. So can you give us some direction as to the wisdom when an SME wants to engage?
Yeah, so we try to demystify that whole perception that agencies are here to only work with big brands. I think essentially agencies are there to help you craft your own path, whether you're building your brand or you're building your business. And that crafting of it needs a certain level of expertise, right? And in these agencies are people who have expertise in how to help you craft your brand, how to, put your brand together, how to communicate your brand. So I would advise that you do that. Now, we have different revenue models, right? And so once you're working with Vodafone and you know that, your agency fee is 10%, and they look at the value, they're like, there's no way we can afford you. But there's several revenue models that we can work with, with SMEs. The interesting thing about working with the SMEs is that because most of the businesses are quite novel, and you can see the vision, you can see the potential in the brand, we love to work with them because we may not make money from them because that is not our main focus, but we can help them to create something which is incredibly awesome that we can put on our books that we were actually part of this. Usually for big brands, you're well-developed, you work as their agent, you see it into the business, but that is what naturally should be. But you're quite proud sitting back and knowing that this is how this brand started. They didn't have the money, but we could use our expertise to help, try and enhance, that brand. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, I call you EcoBank. So, Charlotte, my question is, your last slide, you said financing is like a glove. What I notice in Ghana is that when we ask finance people to come and talk to us about money, they spend a lot of time talking about finance. They don't talk a lot about equity financing. So it's loans, 1 year, 10 years, interest rate. But there's a strong equity culture in the Western world where people build a company. Somebody comes in not just with money, but also with expertise. They help you do the kind of things she was asking you to do. Is it that in Ghana the culture people don't want to share, therefore equity is not really the issue? So is it a demand side issue or is it a supply side issue? Because I felt there could have been a lot more said about the equity option, which I didn't hear. So maybe you can talk a bit about the equity option and what SMEs need to think about. If somebody says, look, I'm a VC fund and I want to give you $100,000 or whatever, well, how should they approach that?
Sure, Bernard, thank you. And I would say that in answer to whether it's a demand or supply side problem, it's a bit of both, in the sense that as a country or as an economy, we've been on a journey. I'm sure that for our older folks, you'd say that years ago, the discussion on equity was not even on the table. Many SMEs were interested in just doing it themselves and unfortunately led to the businesses dying after them. We are at a point now where the awareness of the value in equity is there. That's what I would say. Many businesses know that there is that option. The question and the bit which is still a gap is around understanding where to go for those options. So what I sought to do, or EcoBank seeks to do, is one, on our own, through our subsidiary like the investment wing, be able to work with both SMEs and bigger corporates. Now you'll be surprised that many SMEs think, oh, I'm too small, so whatever will be put in my business, nobody is interested. But today, a lot of those developmental agencies that I talked about are interested in supporting the smaller ones because that is where the impact is greatest, the transformation is greatest. So within the formal sector, there is that. Again, for commercial banks today, a number of us, foremost within EcoBank, are partnering entities that do this. Because we bank the SMEs, we can point them to where they can go. And that's the value-added role that I think we bring to the table.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Now, I don't like doing this announcement, but I'm told there's a vehicle that is really blocking many, many cars and is causing a whole row at the hotel. It's a Toyota Corolla, and the car number is GT905312. GT905312 Toyota Corolla. Please, if you remember your car number, otherwise call the people in your house and ask what is our car number. GT. You know, in those days, we all knew our car numbers when there weren't many cars in Ghana. But now that there are plenty cars, we don't know car numbers. So we've prospered. Because the first car my mother bought, I remember the car number till now. Hyundai Pony. But now I don't even know my own car number. You know. All right, Lordina, can we take one or two questions from you? Lordina is with the Vodafone team, and she has a question that she's going to read out right now.
Hello. Okay. We have a lot of questions
on
compliance. A question here says, COVID.
Lordina, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So COVID-19 is no more. Why do we still have to charge COVID-19 levy?
Oh. Lordina.
Yes.
I hope they know he's not from GRA.
They just want to understand.
Please, let's not waste the question because he can't answer that question.
Okay.
So please ask another question. He's not from GRA, so he can't. Oh, you answer. Okay. Right. Go ahead.
Okay. Then we have another one. How can a young entrepreneur benefit from the development intervention and funds from banks? I think this is in relation to what Charlotte's tweeted.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Okay.
How can a young entrepreneur do what?
Benefit from the development intervention and funds from bank.
Development intervention and funds from banks.
Yes.
Okay.
And then another on compliance. Please expand on Income Tax Act 2015 that provides for a flat fee payment for SMEs. And then to the second question from that same person. As an SME, I have seen an increased aggression from GRE towards collection of taxes. This can be a major drain on the ability of SMEs to grow, especially in the absence of affordable funding. Do you believe that government has the right balance? How would you suggest they approach this?
So it's a 2-in-1, the Income Tax Amendment 2015 and the flat something.
Yes.
And then the aggression of the GRA. And then why they are charging COVID. Ali, you have a lot of questions to answer.
A whole lot.
So there's a question for you. Yours is easier, so go first.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So regarding how a young entrepreneur can access development interventions and direct funding from the bank, remember when I was speaking about the role that each stakeholder plays, I said that for financial institutions, our first action is understanding the SME. It all starts from there. Understanding exactly what you are doing and where you want to get to. That is the role of the bank. And this is key to enable us, point you to which of these partners we are working with. I gave the example of the agricultural sector. So first of all, the entrepreneur needs to have a relationship with the bank. To have that relationship, some of the things that Amma spoke about earlier on matter. Today, young entrepreneurs in Ghana have the option of registering a business very simply, unlike years ago, thanks to the regulator, the central bank, and even commercial banks like us can work with you at a very low KYC level, not asking for the typical documentation that we used to have. So have your business at a minimum form of structure, register it that way, even with the local assemblies, as we've been guided to do, and then we work with you, establish a relationship with us. That enables us to fund. I'll just take a bit of Bernard's time and say that today, the ability to establish relationship with banks, including us, is not too difficult. Online, you can create that relationship. Share whatever information you have, and then we pick up and contact you and carry the journey from there. So that's what I would say.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Ali.
Thank you very much. On the COVID-19 levy, I have always held that it is not a tax I wish that should be scrapped. Reason is that, remember, when the government came into power, we all celebrated the scrapping of 16 tax types. Today, imagine the number of taxes coming back. So it shows it wasn't the right approach in the first place. We could have scrapped 2, the following year 2, gradually, and so we would have been able to find other means. The reason I'm saying this is this. Supposing we scrap COVID-19 health levy, today, with the challenges Korle Bu is having with dialysis, are we going to introduce dialysis levy? So I think the name given to it might have been the cause of the problem. We really have a lot of problems in the health sector. Any revenues should be channeled to solve. I think that our problem is accounting for the revenue we've collected and showing what it has been used for. If we all agree and see how much was raised from COVID-19, where it was spent, how much is left, we can all say, let it stay. The name can change. It can be used to solve a lot. We are complaining about taxes on sanitary pads. Isn't it? Couldn't these revenues be channeled to see what can be done to assist SMEs producing sanitary pads and tampons to expand production and cut down the imports and reduce the import duty? So I think that there should be a conversation. The challenge with our tax situation is the lack of stakeholder engagement. Before you bring any tax policy, you need to engage the stakeholders, which includes the taxpayers. Then from their ideas, you can model a win-win situation of a tax acceptable by us all. Because the taxes are paid to be used to serve our own selves. So why would that be a problem? And that is where my challenge is.
Wow.
On the issue of the GRA collection of taxes, again, I have maintained that it's a challenge of compliance. If all taxpayers are complying with what they are to pay, I can assure you our tax rates can be reduced and we even will get more revenue than we are getting. Because the challenge is with the few that can be identified, there is what we call tax deepening. There are those being chased and imposed with more taxes. But if we are to widen, meaning all those who are to pay and are not paying are brought onto the board to also give their quota, then we don't need new taxes. We don't need to increase taxes. It's about all hands on deck. That is how I see it.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Put your hands together for him one more time. Amma, on your financial goals plan, you had year 1 revenue goal, year 3 take stock and assess progress, year 4 and 5 break even. I want you to elaborate on this because I meet a lot of business people who say they are spending the first year just being known out there. So maybe they sew for somebody or they are doing a designer brand and they feel that the first year they may not even make any money, but just letting people know that they exist. So is this model generic or is it sector specific? I just elaborate a bit around revenue, take stock, and then break even year 4, 5. Elaborate a bit on that.
Okay. Before I get into that, Bernard, I just want to say, I'm no tax expert, but I'm a taxpayer. So I just wanted to say a little bit. There are Scandinavian countries, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, where the tax rate is almost 50%. They have the happiest people on earth. They live long, and they don't complain. Simply because of the accountability. Where does the tax go? What is it used for? They have the best roads. Most people don't even own a car. They ride bicycles everywhere. They have social support structures. Every little neighborhood has a social center where people can go and be entertained, paid for by the taxpayers' money. And therefore, I don't think it's the issue of us paying taxes. It's the accountability. How is it used? Tell us, where did the tax go? Let us see the impact. If I'm driving on beautiful roads and you ask me to pay 70% of my money, in taxes so that I can have good hospitals, good roads, good amenities, we don't have a problem. So I think it's the accountability. So to the question, financial goals. It's pretty generic in the sense that for most businesses, when you start, you need to make an investment. Even if you have a hair braiding business, you need to buy combs. You need to buy chairs. Even if you're going to people's homes to provide that business, you have transportation that you are taking there. So the levels of income and the times of break even and profit may differ. But generally, every business has the investment period, which is typically in the first year. Mm-hmm. Some businesses may break even in the first year or even turn a profit. But for formal businesses where you have formal structures, where you have fixed assets, you need to either build, rent, buy, and then you have to employ, people. Typically, those businesses require a certain level of investment that more often than not will not be recovered in the first year. So I would say that it's pretty much across board, but depending on, the level of that business, in terms of, investment, in terms of required inputs, and the level of revenue, you can either see a profit in the first year or it will be in years 3 or 5.
Wonderful. Andrew, you said something about owned versus earned media. Digital media platforms abound. Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn. Now, some people develop websites because they say the website is your location and social media is their signboard. What are your thoughts around that? Because if I'm a small business, do I still need to invest in a website at all? Or do I rather need to invest in my Facebook page and my Instagram page and some of these things? Can you just give some thoughts around a digital media strategy for a small business, which is cost effective, but to give me the right own and earned media?
Yeah. I mean, they're all driven by technology. There are things you can do with a website that you can't do with an app. There are things you can do with a website you can't do with a social media page, and that's why we call it an ecosystem. Again, I'll bring it back to your business strategy, your marketing strategy, your communication strategy. Once you've been able to hack that, you'll be able to design what your own conversation is. Because there are a lot more information you can put on a social media platform, right? You want quick, snackable information, one photo, but you can tell a whole description about something on your website. And that's why with an ecosystem, I can post a copy or an ad, and then I can put a QR code that you can scan and it goes straight to the website so I can have the full brief. Mm-hmm. So you need to understand each and every media channel, each and every vehicle within that ecosystem, what it can deliver to you, and then you can use that to craft your own specific strategy for the brand. Now, there are some brands who do well on social media. There are those that won't do well on social media. So you need to understand all of these nuances before you can craft that. Now, in relation to, the two schools of thought. You have your traditional media, big ticket, big money, television production, television media buying, the same thing with press, the same thing with radio, the same thing with out of home. Now, the reason SMEs don't have to focus on that is that they usually mass. If you put an advert on television, you're talking the whole country. Meanwhile, your shoe is only for people in Accra. You understand? Or your smog is only for a certain group of people. So understand all of these nuances. And don't say that because digital is here, everything I'm going to do is going to live on digital. Yes, you're right, because a lot more people are spending time on digital. But also understand that there are some tools within these traditional media that can be used a lot more effectively than on social media. And that is why you need to speak to the expert to be able to, and this is the challenge I throw to SMEs. Just don't come and say, I need a solution. Be part of crafting that solution. Because we need to understand your vision, what you do, your brand. We need to really get to the bottom of it so that we can help you to craft a solution that would enhance your own vision.
Charlotte, when people come to me about money, and you talk about go to an institution, they say, I don't have collateral. But I know that there's collateral lending and there's cash flow lending, and there's also both. I want you to just talk a bit about the importance of record. Like, for example, I do a cash transaction and give me 10,000 cedis, and I put it in my drawer, versus take it to the bank and pay, so that they know that there's a record that I got 10,000, right? So just talk a bit about the collateralized lending and then cash flow lending, and why it's important for small businesses to have a record of transactions, so that when I come to you, be comfortable that I have 3 years of cash flow.
Yeah, certainly. I think, Bernard, you are almost becoming a banker as well. The truth is, we do look at collateral, true. But what Bernard said is, I can't say it enough. Every decision that a funder, including those who would put equity in your business, will look at is, what is the business worth? Yeah. We would call that your cash flow, but it's simply everything you are doing with your money on a day-to-day basis. The way a bank or a financing institution, different forms would look at it is, anything that we would put in you should reflect what your size is. So the point around, no matter how small your money is, route it through an institution so that there is a record independent of just you saying so, for someone to validate and based on that make a decision in support of your SME is very key. I know that over the years, many SMEs have told us in the 25 years or so EcoBank has been working with you that you don't want to pay charges. So today, many of us banks, we have tools that enable you to bring that money, take it out with no charges whatsoever. Especially when you're able to work with your clients to use digital payment channels. So for example, today, any SME that opens a digital account, what we call a DigiBanking account, can collect payments from their customers with any of the online tools, POS, through Momo, through QR codes, and there is no charge. After operating that way for about 3 months, we are able to fund you 50% of what you've been doing on average per month, zero collateral. So the solution exists, but we can only do that because we know what your business is worth.
Thank you very much indeed. Put your hands together for the panel. I'm going to call Lordina back for another round of questions. So, Lordina, you have the floor.
This one is for Andrew. So I'm a small business. Can you call out some few factors that can help me build and destroy my brand? And a lot of the people listening online and even in the room have asked for the slides, so I just wanted to put that out there. Also, how does the process, sorry, let me start from the top. What happens when withholding tax is charged and deducted? And is it reported to GRA? That's one question.
I asked that question.
You did, okay.
Lordina, you have a few tax questions
A lot.
that you want to delve into. In fact, I saw a long tax question, which was like a thesis. Let Dr. Ali Nachia further elaborate on modified taxation, either its application now in Ghana. 2, this is from Elfrida. Expand on the definition of fresh graduate. Does the employment of NSP after the service period fall in this category? 3, how do you access finance for, what is a tax holiday? Right? What is a tax holiday? And what are life taxpayers? Who are life taxpayers? I don't know what this is. This is from Prince de Graaf Brimpong, an auction person. He says, question 1, who are live taxpayers? You don't understand. 2, what are some of the offenses under the tax law? Too broad. 3, what is a tax holiday and a withholding tax? I think he's going to write some exam. 4, what are operational milestones? Charlie, this is serious. Pick the ones that make sense to you.
Let me
Lordina, ask more.
this last one. This is from Cynthia. She's asking, at what point is a business classified as micro business and SME? So she needs that help with that.
This under taxation or under
No,
structuring?
a general question.
Generic.
That came in, yeah.
All right. So there was one for Andre. That's the easier one. You should answer it now before we go to the tough ones.
Okay, thank you. So I would say that, you know, before you even get to, you know, the conversation of branding, as I said, a lot more people don't focus on the vision, the reason. There must be a reason. There's a seed. There was a seed in your head that made you want to do what you're doing, right? And I think that, you know, as an entry business, you need to spend a lot of time there, because that is where the energy is coming from. It could come from ambition. It could come from an observation. It could come from a deep insight that you have discovered, that a need that pricks you to want to produce this product or a service. That is a fundamental, and that's why I spend a lot of time to understand that is the business model. Once you understand the business model, go through the process, you need to know where are the low-hanging fruits. I can't do all the 7, 12 things that I put up there. You won't be able to, right? But look at each and every one in the segment and pick the one thing that you can do there. If you can pick one thing that you can do, it can help you to put that plan together. Then, stated again that, again, there are other channels that you can use to brand yourself or to describe your product or to describe your vision, which you can do. You can set up a social media handle quickly. Your LinkedIn is there. These are all non-paid for platforms. And I talked about driving meaningful and relevant content. You should be able to attract people to follow you. You should be able to attract people to be interested in your brand. Therefore, what you communicate on those handles are as important as the vision that you have created in your head. So, pick the low-hanging fruits. Let your communication be relevant. Use very interesting, very, very endearing, both conversations and, photos and copies of communication, and put it out there. That is the start. Then as you begin to grow, you can begin to enhance all these, own media platform to other places, whether it's an interview or whether you're doing a PR and all of that. So start from that vision. I think that vision is where a lot of people need to discover where that strength and that energy is. Then you can expand it, as you move along.
Thank you very much, Ali. A couple of questions for you.
Thank you very much. On the modified taxation, as I explained, you can get the full details in the second schedule to the Income Tax Act 2015 Act 896, which has presumptive tax and goes to show how the GRA is seeking to. Why it's not been implemented, I can't tell. I know modalities have been prepared. The rollout is what is delaying. It's about looking at how an SME, we can agree on what threshold the person should pay a percentage. Let's say if we agree that if your turnover is 200,000 and below per annum, give us 1% of that as your tax for the period. If you are between 200,000 to 500,000, 3%, that is it. If you are above that, you are a big company, you are not SME. So I think the modalities is what we are waiting for. Then on the issue of fresh graduate, the provisions in the tax law is that where you recruit fresh graduates and they form 1% of your total tax force, you get 10% of the total amount you are paying them as your salaries as an additional deduction as of cost. If they are between 1% to 3%, you get 30%. And if they are above 5%, then 50%. It means if your total salary for that class of employees is, say, 1 million, you get additional 500 to deduct as an expense in determining your tax liability. When we talk about the tax holiday and the question on, yes, if the person completes national service, if he's on national service, he's not an employee. But when he completes, you recruit him, that is when you take this advantage. During the national service, it is national service so-called. And then if it comes to tax holiday, this is a period where a person is not required to pay tax. We had it in our law when we started with Act 896 in 2015. All businesses for the first 3 years when you start, you are not to pay tax until after. But then the abuse starts when you never ever show. So we decide that, okay, if you make losses for the first 3 years, you can carry it forward to reduce your tax liability. It's even been extended to 5 years. And that is why I agree with Madam Amma. If you start and you are, don't be targeting profit. The losses you can carry forward to the following year. When you make a profit, you are allowed to deduct the loss. And if that makes you loss, you won't pay tax. You go to the 3rd year. So that is the advantage that we need to be looking out for. But the withholding tax does not account for whether you are on a holiday or not. Here you are an agent of the revenue to withhold tax when you are paying somebody for the supply of goods, works or services or employees and bring it to the revenue. The offenses, we listed them, and I'm sure Vodafone will share the slides and they will see a lot of them are there. And the definition of micro SME, as I indicated, it varies from sector to sector. For the GRA, they will look at your turnover. If you are below 5 million, then you'll be an SME. But if it comes to labor, industry, they also give the number of people you employ that makes your business an SME or a micro. If you go to banking, they may also have their classification. So there's no one shoe fits all. Thank you.
A round of applause for him as well. Amma, I have a question for you. In Ghana now, you have a Ghana card, which then automatically is your TIN number, and then you have your national whatever, passport or whatever. So I'm already known. So I'm a service provider, right? Maybe I sing or I MC. Do I need to start it? Do I need to register a business? Because with all these problems of ECG will come and say you're a business. Somebody will come and say, is it always advantageous to even be a business? Can I not just be a service provider?
Even as a service provider, you need structure. So as a service provider, you are earning money. How do you treat that money that you are earning? How do you provide your services? You have to have an operational guideline. So how do people find you? I advertise, word of mouth. When people find you, how do they hire you or obtain your services? They text you, they email you, they call you. Once people have called you, how do you invoice, right? How do you get paid? So if there's no structure, essentially somebody calls you and you don't keep a record of the call. Let's say you get 10 calls coming in and you don't have a record of those calls. You may end up forgetting that, I had a speaking engagement here. I needed to go and sing there. I'll give you an example. There's a lot of young people in the creative industry where they sing, they dance, they are artists, they paint, etc., who don't feel like they need structure in their businesses. In fact, they don't even consider what they do businesses. But you'll be amazed at the difference in your income and in protecting and safeguarding that income when you put structure around it.
Wonderful. There's a question for Ali. Hello, my business is in procurement and distribution of food items. We pay VAT to the manufacturers and importers. Do we have to double charge VAT on the products when selling to our clients? This person didn't add their name, but this one has a name, and she's Nancy J., founder and chief occupational therapist of WITS Pediatrics. Nancy, are you here? If you are here, give me a wave. Nancy says, does the concept of capital allowance apply to businesses registered as sole proprietorships? So that's question one. And question two from Nancy, what other tax incentives could be explored by a sole proprietor like myself? This is Nancy J., who is the chief occupational therapist of WEOT pediatrics. Here's one from Arnold Kingsley Annan from Hackings Engineering Works. Is Arnold here? Yes, Arnold, give us a wave. Thank you very much. Venture capitalism is the lowest in Africa as compared to Asia and America and Europe. And how can commercial banks support venture capital and angel investment ecosystem, which have proved to be the system that has guaranteed the most private growth in history? Arnold, are you a financial guru? This is powerful. Let me repeat the question. Venture capitalism is the lowest in Africa compared to other geographical areas. How can commercial banks like your own, Charlotte, support the venture capital and angel investment ecosystem, which have been most proven to be effective in guaranteeing private sector growth in history? This is powerful. Another one, to EcoBank. How does a company borrowing at your 20% interest rate compete effectively with products or businesses from other countries which are borrowing at 4 or 6%? I won't read the name of the question, but you have to answer. And then another one, this is Amma, your question. How do we build a great remote work life for businesses whose operations are mostly remote? And what monitoring system would you advise us to put in place? Because NIPA is bad. How would you build a great remote work life for businesses whose operations are mostly remote? And what monitoring systems would you advise to put in place? As always, let the easier one start, because yours is easy, because this time you are hot. So I'm going to deal with that first.
I think that you need to sit down and critically assess, right, the business and what your needs are. If it's a remote business, these days there are systems that are able to literally clock people in and clock people out. So you know when
Sound.
So you know when your remote staff is online and when they are offline. People can clock in, throw the device somewhere, and then, clock out. Tasks. So when you assign tasks and you ask your team to send you their, tasks for the week, for the month, for the day, and then you evaluate them against those. For me personally, for my staff, we rotate. Everybody has 2 days remote work and then 3 days in the office. On the days when you do your remote work, I don't mind if you work from 7 to 1, if you work from whatever your working hours are, as long as you deliver against your deliverables. So what are your deliverables for that day? What are your deliverables for that week or that month? And as long as you are, meeting those deliverables, I don't have an issue with how you work, when you work,
Wonderful. Ali, you had a lot of questions, if you can deal with them.
Thank you very much. On the procurement and distribution, if you are above the VAT flat rate scheme, of course, whatever you incur as VAT when you make purchases is what we call the input VAT. So when you are also distributing, you charge VAT. That's the output VAT. You reimburse yourself with the input you paid. So the difference is what you file with the GRA. If you are on a flat rate, you don't have the luxury of getting an input VAT because you apply the 4%, which is the 3% VAT and 1% COVID levy, and remit everything to the GRA. On Nancy's question, capital allowance, yes. Every taxpayer, sole proprietor, or if you want to go the Avle way, you don't want to set up any business, you still qualify for capital allowances. And for the other incentives, as I indicated, all the incentives you can think about, it's available to you. The personal reliefs are there. Depending on the sector you are operating, whatever incentives exist there, you qualify. If you recruit a fresh graduate, you also qualify. So that is what it is.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Okay, thank you, Bernard. So the first question on commercial banks versus venture capital and angel investment. I would say that the two are in different aspects of financing. Commercial banks essentially use depositors' funds to lend. So we are constrained by how much funds we have from SMEs and other clients of ours, the time within which we have the funds available to be able to also finance other SMEs. Venture capital and angel investment typically is able to support their customers for longer periods and at preferential terms and rates. But you do make a good point. I missed the name of our questioner regarding the ecosystem. We work together in the ecosystem in the sense that when we appraise a client's need and see that this customer would be better served by venture capital funds, perhaps they are at an early stage of their SME development, or they are in a project that will require long-term investment where a commercial bank cannot meet that need, we are able to refer them to those other players. That is where I talked about the partnerships. So we support that ecosystem in that way. And that is why the funding should be appropriate for the need of the SME. I try to emphasize on that. Linked to that, I heard a memo, the question about the interest rates. SMEs are impacted a lot by the borrowing rates. How can an SME compete effectively when competitors on this global market are borrowing in single digits? It's a valid question. I would say that we all know why, or we've tried to highlight why the funding is that expensive. In Ghana, we operate a base regime, which is again impacted by what we ask for as depositors. So all banks are restricted by the Ghana reference rate as a floor, and then we build on that. As our demand for better rates on treasury bills and other similar funding goes up, the lending rate goes up. But that doesn't solve the problem. So let me emphasize on what banks like EcoBank do to help our SMEs to deal with this challenge. A lot of the time, we find that understanding the SME and what they are doing points out to us that they may not need to borrow either at the level, that amount, or the time when they are asking for funding. When we identify that, we help them to determine alternatives to attracting the financing. In cases where it's still necessary for them to borrow, so for example, to make it practical, we have SMEs who need to import, for example. Years ago, SMEs would say, just give me the money, I'll pay the supplier in China or Europe somewhere, and they'll bring the goods. We are at the point now where with the banking support, SMEs are able to establish other payment instruments and not incur the interest costs, even though it would have helped the bank. So we establish letters of credit, we give you guarantees, things that will not let you pay the 20 plus, but you will still pay just a small fee because the banks are not NGOs, maybe 1%. And because of that, you reduce the cost. So there are ways around it. And for us, it's the value addition. Our job is not just to give you money you can't pay or you struggle to, but bring value to you that serves your needs as an SME.
Wonderful. Please put your hands together for the panel. So there's a lot of questions, but the food is getting cold. So I really want to start moving towards closing. And by the way, I need to announce that when we finish, you don't need to go out. The waiters will come to your table to tell you when you are supposed to take your lunch. So you come back in and eat it here. And then you can do the networking. Don't forget what I said at the beginning. A lot of this is vertical, but most, from my experience, the value is also horizontal. So don't close your mouth and just eat. Talk to somebody and meet a new friend. I also suspect that when Tower comes to do the closing, she'll give us an indication of what Vodafone wants to do with us because we're a new family, right? And I hope you've gone onto the WhatsApp page because we want to grow this thing to make it useful so that when the first unicorn comes from Ghana, we can say that they got their inspiration from the what do you call it? VBR 2023. Is that a good idea? So let's network and let's share ideas. In line with that, I want to just take a couple of comments. I'll just call a couple of people I know. Frank Mining Partners. Where's Frank? Can you just tell me a bit more about where's Frank? Okay, give him a mic. I want to hear from Frank as well. Am I making sense? Are you learning anything from the program? Okay. And then where's Moro? I think Moro came to speak to me. He said he wanted me to be on his board or something. Where is he? I think they were trying to put somebody was trying to put what you said into action. He said that I know people, so I should come and sit on his board. I said, sure. Anyway, where is the guy? Yeah. So he's from. Please tell us about yourself. Let's take your comment.
Can
Yes.
you hear me? Okay, my name is Frank. I'm from Mac Mining and Construction Partners. We are a mining support services company. We also do engineering and construction services, and we are proudly wholly Ghanaian owned. I actually had a question for Mr. Lee.
Okay.
I wanted him to, in a way, throw a little bit more light on how to utilize the tax base in a way to stay competitive against foreign companies or maybe joint companies operating in the country. I think what I would like to say about this is that this conference has been great so far, and I wanted to make a remark that so far, so many people are going to leave here. Those that are small are gradually going to grow into being medium enterprises. And as was clearly emphasized or stressed by our panelists, that maybe very soon some of us will be kicked out from here, will no longer be within the SME group, will grow into large corporations. Thank you very much, Vodafone.
Thank you very much indeed. Let me take Abdul Razak. Where's Abdul Razak? PW Ghana. Where are you? All right, please, let's hear you. All right, so the mic next to you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yep. I'm here I want to ask a little question about how SMEs can grow in terms of having cheaper findings from their banks. And in case they don't have a collateral, how are the banks going to help them be able to have a proper funding to be able to work?
Thank you.
And
Straightforward. You know the answer.
Okay, Abdul Razak, thank you for that question. I tried to highlight some of the initiatives that we have. Today, commercial banks, particularly for EcoBank, we have ways of funding an SME without asking for the collateral. I need everyone here to remember that what we are looking at as a bank is your cash flow, your business volumes. I can't say it enough. We have ways of working with other partners, most of which are between the bank and some of those developmental agencies to support SMEs. This way of partnership involves taking on that risk together so that we do not necessarily need to ask you for collateral. Now, these interventions are at the early stage, micro and smaller. Like we've all agreed, the bigger you become, the more you also have to take your own responsibility. So for the smaller, micro and small SMEs, we are able to give you funding, especially when we see how you're operating. So please talk to people. There's a desk out there, and I said it, that there's a strong team of experienced people working with SMEs without insisting on collateral. We also want to support you to grow. Okay.
Wonderful. Was there a question for you from the Mac guy, or was it? Yeah.
I think he was looking at the tax situation and how you can compete with the. I think thankfully in your area we have this Local Content Act, and I think as an association you may have to see how government would enforce it. There are certain jobs in your sector that are reserved for wholly Ghanaian companies, and those are the areas you should target. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Our last two questions, Lord Dina, if you could do the last two, and then we will be inviting Tawa.
Okay. Dr. Ali Nachia, this is a follow-up question on what you explained about the VAT flat rate of 3%. Do you mean when an SME applies for a VAT flat rate of 3%, it doesn't net off its inputs and outputs VAT? And then the last question is, what perseverance structure can we put in place to enable us become resilient and sustain our business when we transition from the corporate world to the SME world?
Please repeat that question.
The last one.
Charlie is wild.
What perseverance structure can we put in place to enable us become resilient and sustain our business when we transition from the corporate world to the SME world? So it's from two different people. The follow-up one from a different person.
You see, some of the people, they have exams to answer, so they want a
Okay. Thank you very much. On the VAT flat rate, it's the law that is clear that if you are on the VAT flat rate scheme, you are not entitled to any claim of input VAT. So yes, that makes it a challenge since it will increase cost. Because if you want to recover you have to put the VAT on the sales amount. On the other side, I think Amma will take it. But for the perseverance, I think I heard her set it all out. And my big brother from Brandon also said it. If you want to grow and remain competitive, you need to look at the sector you are in, whether you need to detach yourself from the brand so that it will live forever. For example, I started as Nachia Consult because it's only a lead Nachia. That's the Bernard Avle way. So, like, I was claiming all my capital allowances. Then I joined the global firm WTS. But my colleagues and directors indicated whenever we mentioned WTS, people will ask, which one is that? They say, Ali Nachia, okay. So they changed the name and say Ali Nachia and Associates. So the firm has nothing to do with me. But that brand Ali Nachia, they think opens doors. So like he said, if you can't detach, we tried detaching, they say, who is WTS? Now we are back Ali, we know Ali Nachia and Associates. So that way, I'm sure the big people are theirs. Thank you.
Put your hands together for the panel. Abdallah Ali Nachia, our tax guy, Charlotte Mankwa, our finance, Andre Aka, our branding, and Amma Bewa, our structure panelists. Please do it one more time for them. A runway is a long stretch of road an aircraft taxis on before a major takeoff. How many of you are ready to take off? Can I see my hand? Then put your hands together for yourselves as we welcome the director for Vodafone Business Tower, Bolarin, who brought all of us together and at whose ages we are here to bring us her closing remarks.